Welcome back, explorers. We are on lesson 5, animals of the temperate deciduous forest habitat. Today, we're going to be talking about a forest. We have been to the Arctic. Excuse me, my nose is itching. We've been to the Arctic where it's snowy and cold. We've been to a desert where it's hot and sandy. We've been to the African grasslands where it's very grassy, and today we're going to a forest, so I can imagine there's probably going to be lots of trees. So before we get started, let's look at our vocabulary words that you will see throughout our lesson today. You have the word climate. Climate is the type of weather that a place has over a long period of time. Example: the climate in the desert is very dry and very different from the climate in the tropical rainforest. Climate. We have the word hibernate, meaning to sleep during the winter season for periods of time that are longer than just one night. Example: some animals hibernate in the winter while others remain active. Hibernate. You have the word species. Is a group of animals or plants that are alike in specific ways and have similar characteristics or features. Example: there are about 70 species of whales, and that's a lot. Store. To save and put something away to be used later. Example: to prepare for winter, some animals store food. Store. Temperate. Not extremely hot or cold. It's a middle or moderate temperature. Example: many places in the United States have a temperate climate. Temperate. The word territory. A space or an area in which an animal or group of animals lives and in which they often will not permit other animals to enter or live. Example: many animals protect their territory. Territory. Now, think about, what do we know about forest? Well, what is a forest? It's a lot of trees, isn't it? Yes. Have you ever been or seen a forest? Yeah, we see them everywhere, don't we? There's lots of forests here and there. I know when we travel to go to the beach, sometimes we travel through different forests to get there in our car. And then sometimes we have forests in our own backyards that we can go out and explore in. What kind of things are found in a forest? Well, I know I've seen raccoons and possums. I've seen snakes and all kinds of insects. I've seen frogs. It just depends because of the habitat. So are all forests the same, or are they different? I think they're different. So not all forests are the same. And today we are going to learn about forest, but today specifically we're going to learn about a temperate deciduous forest. And this one is close to home for us, guys. So let me share my map with you. Okay, so deciduous forest habitat. There we go. Make it bigger so we can see it. So this is the map of the world with temperate deciduous forest around the world highlighted. Now, if you notice, over here in this area is where we live. This is the forest we're going to be talking about today. All right. These highlighted areas have temperate deciduous forest, and they exist all around the world. Okay, you've got some here in Europe, and you've got some here in Asia, and then down here in Australia. But today we're going to mainly talk right here about North America, and specifically in the state of Tennessee and North Carolina. Oh, do you know where we're at? This forest is also a national park, and it's called the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and is one of the most visited national parks in the United States. The mountains are named for a blue-gray mist that surrounds the mountain peaks. Now, the forest you're going to learn about today, as you guessed it, is the Smoky Mountains, but it is a temperate deciduous forest. So I want you to listen carefully to learn what a temperate deciduous forest is. Rattenborough here with the next thrilling chapter in our Habitat Read-Alouds. After looking at some very exotic, means strange and fascinating, faraway places, I thought we could visit a habitat that is quite common in many parts of the United States. This is a forest habitat, and you know you're in a forest habitat when everywhere you look there are trees all around you. You may be wondering why I'm up in a tree. Well, I'm enjoying the wonderful view of a forest in North America. There are only 500,000 acres of forest in this national park. 1 acre is about as big as an American football field. Now, many of you have seen forests like this before, either in real life or in books. You may be familiar with some of the plants and animals that live here in the Smoky Mountains. A lot of them live in many other places all over the United States. There are many different kinds of forest in the world. The forests of the Smoky Mountains are called temperate forest. A temperate forest grows in an area that has 4 seasons, including a warm summer, a cold winter, and receives steady rainfall throughout the year. Even though these forests have a warm summer and a cold winter, temperate means it's not extremely hot and not extremely cold like the other areas we've been to. This forest is also called a deciduous forest because it is full of deciduous plants, trees, bushes, and shrubs that lose their leaves every fall and then grow leaves again when the temperatures start to rise in the spring. The temperate deciduous forest has a much friendlier climate than the other habitats we've learned about, and it can support many different kinds of plant and animal life. The climate of a habitat is what the weather is usually like over a long period of time. A temperate deciduous forest is made up of broadleaf trees like oak, maple, beech, and elm. Now, broadleaf trees have broad leaves or wide leaves. These trees grow very tall and are thickly covered with wide leaves that are better at collecting sunlight than trees like pine trees that have needles instead of leaves. Under these taller trees, there are saplings, young trees, as well as shrubs and bushes and plants that bear fruit. Closer to the ground, shorter plants like grasses and wildflowers grow. I'm going to start at the top and work my way down so I can show you this wonderful habitat. The tree I'm standing in now is an oak tree. This oak is very tall and is covered with leaves and acorns. An acorn is a seed, and if it gets planted in the forest soil, it can grow roots and a shoot which will eventually turn into an oak sapling. Like the saguaro cactus in the desert and the acacia tree in the savanna, oak trees provide shelter and food for many animals. Owls, woodpeckers, mice, and foxes make their homes in the branches or around the roots of the oak tree. And acorns are food for squirrels, birds, deer, and other animals. Look at that tasty insect. Well, the oak tree is home for hundreds of different kinds of insects, like the stink bug and the weevil, which eat its leaves and acorns. Moths and butterflies lay their eggs in the tree, and other insects like ants and timber beetles, they live under the bark of the oak or in dead and fallen trees. Just as insects are drawn to the oak as a source of food, so are animals that feed on insects. Spiders and all kinds of birds hunt for tasty bugs among the branches of the oak tree. Bears and other animals find food here too. The oak tree is an amazing habitat in itself. Down on the forest floor, there are all kinds of shrubs, the fruits of which are foods to many different species of animals, including rabbits, chipmunks, deer, and omnivores like bears. Now, a species is a group of plants or animals that are similar or alike. The animals you just heard listed are all to many types of insects and are food to grazing animals such as deer and mice. One interesting thing about the plant in a forest is that often they grow leaning in the same direction. Isn't that strange? Why do you think the plants might be leaning in one direction? Well, it has to do with that because they are looking for sunlight. The leaves of the big trees get all the sun and only a small amount of sunlight gets through to the forest floor. That's why it's so shady in here. The plants down here have to grow toward the sun so they can get enough light to make the food they need to survive. You may have seen this fuzzy green stuff growing on rocks, trees, and the ground in the forests or countrysides. See, you can see the moss right down here at the bottom. Over here. Yeah. Mosses are small green plants which grow in clumps in damp and shaded places. They cover parts of the forest floor like a carpet and are home to many small animals and insects. It feels really soft to walk on, thick and spongy, and it tickles just a bit. Now we're going to take a look at some of the animals that live here. Great Smoky Mountains National Park is home to almost 400 different kinds of animals. Animals that live in the temperate deciduous forest are adapted to living in a habitat with 4 seasons. Can you name the 4 seasons? Fall, winter, spring, and summer. Great. Let's start with the mighty oak tree again. This amazing tree is home to many animals. And I'm standing at the nest of one of them, the gray squirrel. This little animal is covered in warm gray-brown fur with a white chest and a long bushy tail. Squirrels live in holes in the trunks of trees or in nests high up in trees like this one. Their nests are built from twigs, leaves, moss, and grass. Squirrels use their strong back legs and sharp claws to help them leap from tree to tree, to run up and down tree trunks, and they use their tails to help keep them balanced. Squirrels are omnivores. They spend most of their time looking for food. So what's an omnivore? Oh yeah, animals that eat both plants and animals. The squirrels eat mostly acorns from oak trees, but it also eats nuts, mushrooms, berries, seeds, and even bird eggs and insects. This squirrel might nibble on an acorn or two now, but it will also bury and store. Store means to save many acorns underground so it will have them in the winter when their food is hard to find. A barred owl lives in a hole in this oak tree. I have to be careful because owls are carnivores. Now, what's a carnivore? Animals that eat other animals. Unlike the elf owl in the desert, this owl happens to enjoy eating rats. This owl eats other animals like mice, insects, and even other birds. Owls have very good hearing and excellent eyesight, which allows them to find their prey easily in the thickest forest. Owls are nocturnal, which means they only come out at night. So I have some time before this one is ready for a late night snack. Hold on, what's that scratching sound coming from below? It's a black bear. Black bears are common in North America, temperate deciduous forest, And there are more than 1,000 in this national park. They are large animals. They weigh as much as 14 first graders would weigh altogether. And when they stand on their hind legs, they can be taller than a person. Bears are omnivores and hibernate or sleep during the winter in hollowed out trees or caves. When they are hibernating, bears use less energy and do not need to eat any food for many, many days. This is a good thing because during the winter, the foods that bears eat are scarce and hard to find. Bears are covered in thick black or brown fur, and they have sharp claws to strip the bark off trees to uncover the insects that live there. Now, the word bark in this sentence means the outer covering of a tree. The word bark also can refer to a sound a dog makes. This bear will use its long, sticky tongue to get into every crack to hunt out the insects, and that will make a delicious meal for him, I'm sure. I just saw a deer through the trees. Deer often live in the temperate deciduous forest because it is such a good place to stay hidden, but they often hunt for food in neighboring meadows. This is a buck. A buck is a male deer, and we can tell because male deers have antlers. Did you know that a buck's antlers fall off every year and will grow back again? Bucks mark their territory by stripping the bark off trees with their antlers. Now remember, a territory is an area in which an animal or group of animals lives. Animals often protect their territory and try to keep other animals out. Bucks also use their antlers for fighting with other male deer. The deer is a white-tailed deer. Its coat is tan right now, but in the winter it will change to gray-brown, and it has patches of white on its underside. This helps the deer to be camouflaged or hidden in the environment. How do you think the change in color from tan to gray-brown with patches of white in winter helps to camouflage the deer? It blends in with the trees and the leaves in the forest, doesn't it? Blends in a whole lot better. Deer grazes on grass and eat tree leaves, berries, and acorns, among other things. They mostly come out to feed at night when the light is low, and they rest during the day. This white-tailed deer has strong, long legs which are good for running and jumping and for escaping from predators like wolves, coyotes, and people. The temperate deciduous forest climate can support many different plants and animals because it has 4 seasons. It is called temperate because it never gets too cold like the Arctic or too hot like the Sonoran Desert. There is a steady rate of rainfall throughout the year so plants can grow and animals can have food and water to keep them alive. This is just one of the many kinds of forest in the world. Next, we're going to take a look at another kind. It's going to be very different in a lot of ways. I'll see you on our next adventure. All right, friends, so we are back. So let's talk some questions here about our lesson today. So are all forests the same or are they different? They're different, okay? Can we describe the temperate deciduous forest habitat that we talked about today? Well, we know it has cold and warm seasons, and they get steady rainfall. Plants lose their leaves and they come back in the spring. Good. What kind of plants would you see in a temperate deciduous forest? Broadleaf trees, bushes, shrubs, mosses. Great job, guys. How is the temperate deciduous forest habitat of the Great Smoky Mountains like the other habitats that you've learned about? Well, all the habitats we've learned about, they all have plants and they all have animals. But how is it different? Oh, it's definitely the climate, meaning the temperature, and different animals that live there and different plants. So let's think about the gray squirrel. Where does it find shelter in a temperate deciduous forest? It either finds it in a nest or a hole in a tree. What kind of food does the gray squirrel eat? It eats acorns and it eats small plants and insects. Is the gray squirrel a carnivore, a herbivore, or an omnivore? It's an omnivore. Where does the barred owl find shelter in the temperate deciduous forest? Usually a hole in the oak tree. What kind of food does the barred owl eat? It eats small animals. So is the barred owl a carnivore, a herbivore, or an omnivore? It's a carnivore. Where does the black bear find shelter in the temperate deciduous forest? In caves or in hollowed out trees? Good. In a temperate deciduous forest, what food does the black bear eat? He eats plants and he also eats small animals. So does that make the black bear a carnivore, a herbivore, or an omnivore? It makes him a carnivore. During the winter, the black bear hibernates. What does that mean? That means he sleeps during the winter. What food does a deer in a temperate deciduous forest eat? He eats plants, doesn't he? So does that make the deer a carnivore, a herbivore, or an omnivore? It makes it a herbivore. All right, so we're going to stop there for today. Hope you enjoyed that lesson about the Great Smoky Mountains, which was really cool. Until next time, explorers, I will see you soon.